logistics. So quick event logistics. Ask questions in the chat, and our panelists and Amelia, our team member, will get to those. Please be respectful and supportive to other applicants that are on this call. And as mentioned, feel free to sign up for Leland. We have coaches and also have like a free Slack community and other free resources to help you navigate the dental school admissions process. So here's a quick agenda. We're going to go through a quick welcome and go through some introductions. We'll give you a quick overview of Leland, who we are and what we do. And then we'll dive into the dental school panel where we'll ask questions to our panelists and give you really concrete and actionable items that you can take to apply to your own application process. And finally, we'll have like a quick final word and thank the panelists for their for sharing their expertise. So here are a couple people that you'll see in the chat. So we've got John, our CEO and co-founder of Leland. We have Amelia, who does content and marketing. And then I will be hosting and moderating this panel. And one of my primary responsibilities is helping you find the right expert. So if you are looking for that mentorship and coaching, I'm happy to help you out and find the right person to work with. And now we're going to introduce our panelists today. Ruby, I'll have you introduce yourself first, and then we'll go to you, Heath, and then Shivani. So over to you, Ruby.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ruby. I am a current fourth year at Harvard School of Dental Medicine. I actually graduate in like 40 days, so it's crazy. I went to undergrad at UMass Amherst. I graduated in 2019, and I went straight into dental school here at Harvard. I plan on going into general dentistry when I graduate at a private practice in Providence, Rhode Island. So yeah, I'm looking forward to talking to you guys.
And I'm also a fourth year dental student. I'm at Tufts University in Boston. And I also graduate here in 40 days. So I'm excited to be done. And I will be going to residency for oral maxillofacial surgery at Yale.
Hey everyone, my name is Shivani. I'm a second year dental student at The Ohio State University. Unfortunately, I'm not graduating in 40 days. But I went to undergrad at UC, and I did a double major in medical sciences and philosophy. And I took a gap year between my undergrad and my dental school, and I worked as a dental assistant in that time period. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for the great introductions, and excited to learn more from each of you during this event. So now we'd love to get to know the audience. If you don't mind sharing where you're attending college, when you're applying to dental school, and what field of dentistry that you're interested in, feel free to drop that in the chat. Would love to learn a little bit more about you. Awesome. We've got some fellow Ohio State students.
Go Bucks.
I saw in there someone from Canada. I also wanted to just say I'm Canadian, and I'll probably get into that later. Applied as an international student through everything. So if there's any international students here, I feel your pain.
Awesome. So great to see all the different schools around the world that are here joining us. And thank you all for being here. This is great. And keep it coming so we can continue to learn more. So would love to dive in and just give you a quick overview of Leland, who we are, what we do. We provide coaching for graduate admissions, undergrad admissions, breaking into specific career paths, as well as test prep. We have over 300 education and career coaches on our platform, over 30,000 people in our communities today. We've raised $5 million from top venture capital firms, and our coaches represent over 150 universities and companies worldwide. Our coaches have helped over 2,500 applicants gain acceptance to top schools and graduate school programs. So you can see many of the logos of schools that our coaches have helped applicants get into. And we're really excited to help you navigate the application process as well. What are the offerings that we offer for each applicant? So we provide one-on-one coaching, as mentioned. This can come either hourly. It could also come in form of a package. So if you're looking for just 1 hour of help, you can get that on our platform. Or if you're looking for like end-to-end support, you can get that through a package as well. We provide small group classes. So these are live classes taught in a group of 6 to 12 people. Typically the sessions are 60 or 90 minutes on a specified topic, such as like personal statements, how to navigate the letters of evaluation process, how to prepare for dental school interviews, etc. And then lastly, we have a pretty robust college club partnership. So many of you may have found out about this event through your college club on campus. We will bring dental students or dentists to your campus for events. We also provide these college club partners exclusive discounts and other resources to help you navigate the process. And then with that, as mentioned, for those of you that joined since we started, if you sign up for Leland today, we will send you a $25 coaching credit. And just, I've talked a little bit about this, but the way that this coaching credit could be used is for end-to-end coaching on your entire application strategy. That's really important when you're in the current application process, or if you're like a first or second year college student and you don't really know how to approach the next couple of years, you could work with an expert to put together a plan. Once you've put together your application, you can get edits on that. Essays are a really important component of the application, and our experts can help with that, interview prep, if you need help preparing for the DAT, etc. So there's a lot of opportunities for you to engage with a coach and use that coaching credit that you'll receive if you sign up today. So here's the most important part of the event, is actually diving in with our panelists and providing you the concrete tips and strategies on how to navigate the application process. So without further ado, we're going to jump in. Hypothetically, if I'm a dental student, what is the ideal timeline to prepare? And obviously there's a lot of different scenarios which the audience may be in, whether they're like a first year or a third year. So panelists, if you can kind of talk about what that ideal timeline would be and what you would recommend, that would be great. So maybe we start with you, Ruby, and then we'll go to you, Heath, and then Shivani, if you have any thoughts.
So this is a great question and something that I think is really important to keep in the back of your head. But before I start talking, I just want to say, just remember that everyone's timeline is different. There's some of you who might be able to go straight through, and there's some of you who might need to take a few gap years. So just make sure you apply what you're hearing to kind of your situation and your personal life. But in general, my path to dental school, and something that, you know, in a very ideal world that I would recommend, is for people to go straight through. Obviously, you save time. But in my situation, especially being Canadian, when I was in undergrad, I didn't want to waste a year of OPT and potentially risk not getting in after that first year of kind of working. So I kind of had to commit to going straight through. The ideal timeline, I would say, is to do your shadowing, your extracurriculars and everything, your first and second year. And then in the end of your second year / I would actually more so recommend like into your third year, so your junior year, starting to study for the DAT. Anyone I've mentored in the past, I always recommend taking the DAT in February. I think it's like February 20th, around that time, is this sweet spot to take it. And the reason for that is because if you need to retake it, you will have until you have to wait 3 months to retake it. You'll be in May, which is when you'll get to retake it, and that'll still give you a month before applications open. And it takes a month for your DAT score to become validated for the schools to actually look at your application. So ideal timeline wise, doing your extracurriculars, doing what you're interested in, and then taking that DAT in the February of your junior year should be the perfect timeline to then work on your application that summer and send it out.
Yeah, I agree with everything Ruby said. One thing I would add is I know everyone's coming in at different stages, but if you're coming in as a first year student, like as a freshman in college, I would just say when you're looking at your major, I would try to choose a major that, I mean, you can get into dental school with any major, but if you can find a major that the prerequisites for dental school and your major, if that kind of lines up, that can save you some time and help you to get there faster. It's by no means absolutely necessary, but if you can kind of start planning from the very beginning of your education, what you need to do to prepare for dental school, then that's really helpful.
I know that it might be hard for some people, especially if you're first or second year, to pick a specific healthcare route, which is kind of where I was. I was trying to decide between pre-health and trying to go to med school versus pre-dent. And I think what Ruby kind of emphasized was getting those experiences in early. I think that's really important as an applicant to make sure that the admissions committee knows that you started from the beginning and you had an interest in the beginning, even though if you can't narrow it down to specifically applying for dental school right away in undergrad. I think getting those research hours and getting shadowing early is probably one of the most important things that people kind of skip out on when applying.
All really good thoughts. Thank you all for sharing. And just want to echo, I think the best way to figure out what it is that you want to do is shadowing and understanding what that day-to-day job looks like and what that process is. And that's obviously an important component of the application. So really good thoughts. So I mean, this is a good segue. What are some of the important components of a successful dental school application? Maybe we start with you, Heath, and then we'll go to you, Shivani, and then Ruby, if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I think the most important thing is your DAT score and your GPA, because if you don't have those, then a lot of schools will overlook you if you're coming straight from undergrad. So as you're going through undergrad, a lot of people will like, if you have multiple jobs and you're paying for yourself getting through school, that's great and really commendable. But if you get a C in chemistry or something like that, the schools that you're applying to, they don't know, or they don't really care that you are working 2 jobs. They see the C. So I would just say really focus in on your DAT score and your GPA, and then worry about the other components after that.
One of the best things that I feel like I did for my application was submitting it the day it opened. I think a lot of people kind of miss out on opportunities the more you wait. Just remember that dental school is a rolling application. So the day you put it in, as long as your DAT score is in and verified by then, they'll see it right away. And you could be someone that has like a 4.0 GPA, 30 on your DAT, and if you submit like 2 weeks before the application closes, they probably already filled those spots, which they would have given to you if you had just submitted sooner. I think that's the most important component. And then echoing what Heath was saying, I think without your grades, you kind of can't really make the first cut. So making those initial cuts and making sure you're hitting those is important. As well as if you're a 3rd or 4th year that is applying, I think each school has its own character and things that they look for. So maybe narrow down a list of 10 schools that you think are ideal places that you would like to end up, and do some research into those schools, because there's definitely some schools that would prefer you do a lot more research, as opposed to some schools that really value experiences. Like Ohio State really likes experiences. So they really like to see those like shadowing hours be put in, as well as making sure that you're actually knowing what you're getting yourself into and being involved in different kinds of cultures and different environments. They want to see that you're kind of immersed in those, whereas some other schools might look for like a research paper that you have published to be on their top tier list.
And I completely agree with everything Heath and Shivani said. I also do want to echo what Shivani said, that each school is different. And I think that some schools emphasize more than others when it comes to grades and DAT scores. But with that being said, and this is not to by any means scare anyone, one of the main things you can really try to control in your application is your GPA and your scores. So just putting in a lot of effort to making those as high as possible, whatever that means for you, is just going to help you in cases where some schools do have cutoffs. You know, some schools get a mass amount of applications and they really can't function without hitting those cutoffs. But with that being said, there's many people who get in every single year with lower than average GPAs, lower than average DATs, and that is where your experiences will truly come in. So I think one of the most important things that I struggled to do in my undergrad career, because it felt like not the right thing to do, was actually seeking out experiences that were very unique to me and what I was personally interested in. So being international, I was not able to work as an assistant. I really couldn't do a lot of those work studies and stuff. So I did a lot of volunteering. And I did a lot of volunteering that I was actually very passionate about. And I think that it translated very well when I was going through my interviews, because I was able to very clearly talk about why I did what I did and how it related to dentistry. And some of the things that I was doing weren't necessarily a clear connection between the two. So for example, I was a mentor in Big Brothers Big Sisters. I was also a sexual abuse counselor for the University of Massachusetts Amherst. All of those things you wouldn't think they would tie into dentistry, but during my interview process, I was able to tie them in. So I think that those are also things to remember. If you're kind of lacking in one place, you can really amp yourself up in others.
Awesome. I love that. I think with just general, just like tying it all together, it sounds like schools value different things. Really important to control the things that you can control, such as like your experience, your GPA, doing well in your classes, studying for and preparing for the DAT, etc. And then in areas where there are perceived weaknesses, say you get a lower science score in a TET, or get a lower grade in a science class, or get a below average DAT score, then you'll need to figure out where to make up for those perceived weaknesses, whether that's in your extracurricular activities, your work experiences, etc. Really good thoughts. So knowing, Heath, to your point that the DAT plays such an important role in your application, what is the best way to prepare for this exam? Maybe we start with you, Shivani, if you have any thoughts, maybe touching base on how you personally prepared, and then Ruby, and then Heath.
I actually did DAT boot camp with the online services, and I did a self-paced. It's really important to know how you study. A lot of sources will give you a list and say, hey, this is a 6-week plan to get a 30 on your DAT, but not everyone is built the same, which is why I think it's kind of important. If you're someone that needs a little bit more help and coaching, it's important to reach out to those, because this is probably the most important thing in your application is your DAT score. Speaking from experience, I knew going in that I didn't necessarily like my GPA as where it was, and I had a lot of amazing experiences, but I knew when it came down to it, my DAT was going to play a lot bigger role in that. And something that I didn't necessarily do, but a lot of my friends did, was they cut down their load if they're an undergrad of how many credits they were taking. And that's a really good way to also prepare for the DATs, to kind of tone down on what you're doing in school and translate those same hours into the DAT. And I think taking practice tests is probably one of the most important things that I did. And that'll be a good way for you to learn what you're good at, what you're not good at, so you're not wasting time on things that you're already doing well in, and kind of finding your weaknesses is probably the best way to go forward with that.
Cool. Ruby, do you have any thoughts?
I agree with everything that was said. I think that DAT bootcamp is kind of the end all be all best thing to use. And that's not just for the DAT itself, it also actually is for boards later in dental school too. I did work for DAT bootcamp before I started dental school. I don't work for them anymore, so this is not like a plug like that, but I do think that they do a really good job of keeping their information updated. They have people that are, you know, have taken the DAT and done very well, and then they hire them to become education like experts pretty soon after. So you're getting really kind of recent updated information. I also do think that the DAT bootcamp just traditionally is regarded as the most similar to the real exam. So you have just the comfort level, especially if you have testing anxiety, you can just get used to answering questions and seeing things in the way that DAT bootcamp lays it out. And it's very similar to test day. But there's lots of free resources out there too. I would definitely hesitate to kind of give your money to a lot of different sources. Kind of stick with one like Shivani said and go with it.
I don't really have any additional comments. I thought what Shivani and Ruby said were great.
Cool. Awesome. So we kind of touched base on this, so I'm going to just open it up if anyone has any strong thoughts. But if someone has like a lower GPA or a lower DAT score, what advice would you have for those students? So I'll just open it up. Heath, Ruby, or Shivani, any of you have any strong thoughts or opinions on this?
Yeah, I would say, one, don't feel like because you have a lower GPA, like your dream is gone, because there are plenty of people who have a different route. My fiance she's currently a dentist, but she did a master's program because she had a lower GPA. Actually at Mississippi College, which I saw someone in the chat is there. So you can do a master's program if you have a lower GPA. If there's still time and you're an undergrad to take the DAT again, take it again. Like don't give up after one try or two tries. Like you can keep going, and there are other paths that you can take to be able to get there. So I would just say, don't give up and just find a mentor and try to find another pathway to get there, because your dream's not all gone if this applies to you.
I think there can be some like unique experiences that kind of can outweigh that they don't see in other applicants. Research is not a big thing in the dental field if you're pre-dent. And I think if you have like a paper published, it comes off as a really strong setting point of, look at this student is still a high achieving student, even though they might have had a lower GPA or DAT score. And also a lot of colleges know harder program versus not. Like if I'm going to Ohio State right now, I went to undergrad at the University of Cincinnati. There's a medical sciences program where we took all of our classes with the medical students. So schools within the state know the rigor of those programs. So they know, okay, if we see a lower GPA, they know why. And also there's a section on the application to explain that. So you can say, hey, like this is the reason why that my GPA or my DAT score is lower. And this is what I did to kind of help those situations. They just want to know that you've learned from that experience and can take that forward.
And I, again, completely agree with everything. I think that the main thing to remember is that you have options. If your true end all be all goal is to go to dental school, having a low GPA or a low DAT score is not something that can't be fixed. It's just a matter of how you want to approach fixing it. So again, like I know not everyone has options like paying for a post-bac program, but that is like something that really helps for a low GPA. And often actually a lot of post-bac programs, like the one Heath mentioned that his fiance did, or his girlfriend did, sorry, I'm not sure which one it was, but you can actually almost siphon into a dental school as a result. For example, I know BU has a program just like that. It's called oral sciences, I believe. And so you can go into BU for that, do the post-bac program with them, and then they take about half that class into their first year dental class. So there's lots of options like that out there, but more than anything, you can really explain yourself by just having a good application. And once you get into the interview, you can show like, you know, okay, this is why maybe this area was lacking for me. And it also those extracurriculars that you do.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes answering the like, why is your GPA lower, or why is your DAT lower, or why are other components of your application the way they are? I feel like sometimes explaining that in an application can be challenging because you don't know the right way to approach it. So just wanted to call out, that's a really good a good reason for you to look into working with an expert or with a coach that understands the process a lot better, because they will be able to coach you how to effectively turn these perceived weaknesses into strengths and explain yourself in a way that resonates with the admissions committees. Thank you all for your thoughts on this. So then this, I think a really important question that you need to solve when you're going through the application process is, what schools am I applying to? So really interested in understanding what research went into the different dental programs that you were interested in applying to, and then how did you decide to like how did you narrow down that list and ultimately pick the ones that you chose? So I'll just open it up. Whoever wants to dive in can go for it.
I did a very unique way of trying to figure out my dental schools. A lot of people know there's a lot of dental students that are on Instagram, and there's probably like one from every single school. And that's kind of how I went about it, because I didn't necessarily want to hear from admissions, because they're going to tell you the good things and they're going to try to kind of tell you what you want to hear. But I reached out to current students. So I DM'd probably 2 or 3 people from every school that I wanted to apply to. And that trying to figure out where I wanted to apply was kind of one based on location. I knew I didn't want to go onto the West Coast. I knew I kind of wanted to stay on the East Coast and in the Midwest. So that kind of narrowed down my schools. And also trying to figure out their GPA and DAT score kind of narrowed it down. But then when I was really trying to pick like my top 10 or 15, that's kind of what I did, was I reached out to current students and I'd be like, hey, I just have a couple questions about your experience at the school. What do you think about these things? And I kind of saw, can I fit in there? Is how I'm interacting with the student, kind of what I would want to interact with my peers, because the kind of students they recruit is different for every school, and the type of students that they're looking for. Also, that's kind of how I ended up like touring some schools even before I even applied. I'd be like, hey, I'm driving up to Columbus. Do you think that we can just walk around the school and see what it's like? And I think that was probably the biggest help that helped me. Also, there's a lot of like YouTubers that have kind of done like their day in the life. So you can compare different schools and what their day in the life kind of looks like. And I guess that's also part of like what influenced me to start my own. So if anyone has questions about Ohio State, feel free to reach out on my Instagram as well, and I can put it in the chat.
I had a very OCD method of doing things. And I say that because I am kind of going back to being an international student. There's so many schools out there that just point blank don't consider international students at all. So when I was looking at a list of schools to apply to beyond just Canadian schools, I really didn't know, okay, what schools would even look at my application, what schools would immediately throw it out because I'm not an American citizen. So I found a pretty old Excel sheet, and I think that it still is around, and there's updated ones now that essentially showed which schools have a history of taking international students versus which ones don't. I studied this pretty intensely, so I learned from it. And then from that list, I took out which schools were more Canadian friendly. based off of my own research and things I had heard, like reaching out to others and speaking, to people. And then from that list, I narrowed down to kind of schools that I thought would be a good fit for me. Being international, though, I definitely had a very healthy range of safety schools to reach schools, because even though I had a good GPA, a good DAT, and all of those things, I knew that I had kind of that extra part stacked against me with being international. So I was very strategic about where I applied and why I applied to the school. So that was kind of my way of doing things, just because of that international piece.
Yeah, and one tip that I would say is, as you're speaking to current dental students, I would try, if you can, to talk to graduates of dental schools, because at the end of the day, the people who are in dental school, you don't really know how well you're being prepared as a dentist until you're actually in the field. And so there's certain schools that will prepare you better for certain areas, but talking to the current students sometimes isn't the most helpful in knowing how well they'll be prepared to actually go into the workforce.
All really good thoughts. So I think I heard a mix of culture, the actual experience or preparation you'd get, and that comes from talking to current students and alum. And then like rankings, I think is important, as well as just like, what are their statistics, and do you fit within the averages or ranges of their statistics of students that they accept. I think at its core, each of you should think about what's important to you. So obviously there's a lot of different things that you can think about, such as location and some of the things I've listed. And I would prioritize those things of importance to you to then help you narrow down which schools that you would want to apply to. Awesome. So how important are extracurricular activities in the dental school admissions process? And as a secondary, do you have any examples of things? I know Ruby shared a couple. If you have any examples of extracurriculars that you participated in or have seen classmates participate in, I think that'd be super helpful too. I've seen a lot of people drop questions about this in the chat. So I think giving some people some ideas of what they could do would be very helpful. Ruby, do you want to start? And then we'll hand it over to you, Heath, and then Shivani.
Yeah, sure. For me, I think this is very, very important. Like I said, I think this was how I made my application different from all the other applicants that also had, high GPAs and DATs, like kind of met those written cutoffs. I think that my extracurriculars are what set me apart. I also will say, being on the admissions committee this past year at Harvard, we highly look at that. Once we have a list of candidates to interview, and students interview them, faculty interview them, and what have you, what really comes down to it is the impression that they made on me. And a lot of that comes from the discussions we have about their extracurriculars. So I say that especially to emphasize that being passionate about the extracurriculars that you are involved in is extremely important. Don't just do something to put it on your resume. I know it's really easy to like fall into that trap, especially as like you hear everyone talking about, oh, you got to do this if you want to get into dental school, you got to do this. Like I had very minimal shadowing because I just decided to go to dental school pretty late. I shadowed one dentist for like a summer before I decided to apply. And other than that, my dental experience was next to none because that just wasn't my personal path to dentistry. So again, like I kind of mentioned earlier, you can really tie in the things you're passionate about into dentistry in your own unique way, because most of you will want to be dentists for, the same reasons that you are also interested in these other fields. So that's kind of what I would say.
Yeah, and I would just say with extracurriculars, if you can, like find, like what Ruby was saying, don't just do things just to put it on your application. Find things that you're passionate about. And I would say that it's better to have 2 or 3 extracurricular activities that you really invest time and dedication to, and you can show them that you're actually passionate about, than having 20 different random things that you did for like a couple months and then switch to something else, and then a couple other months. So find what you're passionate about and stick with that.
Kind of echoing what Ruby was saying, I think it's finding the unique opportunities that they don't see in every other application. Like most of my interviews had nothing to do with dentistry. One of the really unique opportunities that I did was I was a intern for an acid survivor victim nonprofit. I just felt really passionate about the topic, and I had met the medical association or the medical director for that association at an event, and I had talked to her for so long, and she was also very passionate on the idea, and we just had was shooting ideas off of each other, and she was like, do you want to be an intern for us? And I just started, and that was not even with the intent of adding it onto an application. It was never with the purpose of, oh, this will make my dental application look really good. But when dental schools are looking at your application, they want to see someone that's passionate. They want to see someone that's considerate of other people, and being able to show that in non-dental experiences, I think is just really important. And trying to do like internships in non-dental things, because to be honest, you're going to be doing dentistry after you get in for so many hours of so many days, you're going to get tired of it. So don't try to like sit there in like so many offices beforehand and trying to just do all you do is shadow, because that won't even really add to like who you want to be as a person. You have to find your own path of why you chose dentistry, and it's definitely not just staring at teeth all day. There's definitely like more to it, and they want to see what more you have to offer.
Awesome. Really good thoughts. Thank you. Okay. So the personal statement, is sometimes challenging to know, like, what does the AdCom want me to say? How do I present myself, in like a professional way? So really interested in your thoughts on what makes a stellar personal statement. And if you have any tips, maybe from past clients or mentees that you've worked with, on how this audience should think about writing theirs. Maybe we have you, Ruby, share, and then Shivani, and then Heath on this one. I think this one's really important.
The personal statement writing piece was honestly like the biggest roadblock for me, I remember, when I was applying, because I just felt like no matter what I did, I couldn't get out a genuine personal statement. I felt like I had to make some grandiose story up about my path to dentistry, and it just felt so not genuine. And eventually, like when I started writing my personal statement / working on it, and by that I mean like I would just go on Google Docs and kind of do a brain dump, probably in like March or April of the year the summer that I was applying, to send out my applications on June 1. And then it was like mid-May, and I was like, scrap this is not who I am, like I can't do this. And then honestly, I took a very literal approach to my personal statement and essentially wrote out why, like my exact path to dentistry. I talked about how when I was a kid, I really liked art, and then kind of my transition into my major, what I did in college, and then how I went to dentistry. And that is exactly what I've always advised mentees to do as well. I think, again, it comes back to that genuineness. You know, these admissions counselors that are working at these schools see hundreds, if not thousands, of applications. They can sniff out when an personal statement is not genuine. So it's so important to make sure your personal statement is true to you. And it's okay if it's not some like amazing story that you feel like could be a show on its own. It just has to be your story. And if you do a good job of writing it truthfully, honestly, and you're genuine about it, that is what will stand out. So really, I think that's what makes a stellar personal statement and what I would recommend.
I totally agree with Ruby. I think it was also a block for me because everything else was like a checklist. It was like, okay, I have to hit this GPA. I have to hit this score on the DAT if I wanted to get into this school. But this is the one area that you don't know what they want. And I probably wrote and rewrote mine 6 or 7 times before I finally decided on even a topic that I wanted to take. And I think the biggest thing that helped me was having someone else read it, because you read it over and over again, and you're making like these small little adjustments, and those might not even necessarily be the things you should focus on. So having someone read it and tell you, hey, like this paragraph is really good, go deeper into that, rather than being like, oh, you're nitpicking the same thing and you're telling me the same thing over and over again. And you also want to focus that you're not repeating what your other parts of your application's already saying. Like, this is such a unique area that you can say whatever you want, and the dental school can't really tell you what to say in this section. So try to pick things that help them get to know you as a person and not you as an applicant. And that's why it's so important to have people that don't know you read this essay. So not your mom or your dad, who they've grown up and they know, oh my gosh, yeah, I have an amazing daughter or son, and they're always going to think that of you. But to have someone that doesn't know you at all read a piece of paper and then be like, oh, I understand them, I understand their passion in this piece of paper, is exactly kind of what you want, because that's what the admissions committee is doing to you. They don't necessarily know you.
Yeah, that was great. I don't have anything to add.
Awesome. Thanks so much. All right. So we just want to do a quick pulse check. If you wouldn't mind dropping a little emoji in the chat on like how you're feeling, maybe a thumbs up, smiley face, whatever it is, would love to just see how everyone's feeling. And then also for those of you that have recently joined, we are giving coach credit away to work with people like these amazing panelists. So if you sign up using that QR code, we'll be sure to get that $25 of coaching credit to hit your inbox. And this is a great place to get help with your personal statement, get help picking your extracurriculars or writing about them. A lot of the things that we've touched base on, these coaches can provide that mentorship and expertise. I know this is a stressful process, but we have help and support for you. Okay, so I'm going to ask Ruby to answer this one, given your admissions committee experience at Harvard. Interested in what importance does the letters of evaluation process make in the overall application?
I would say they're both very important and also can be not so important. So what I say with that is, say you have there's applicants that we looked at that had very, very strong letters of recommendation from 1 or 2 faculty. Often, like how schools will get it is it'll be multiple pages of recommendations kind of stacked on top of each other. So you just flip through them. It'll be really, really strong. And then there will be one that's just like super bland. You'd be surprised how many people will submit bland letters of recommendations for you. And I kind of say that in the sense of like, just make sure that the person you're asking for your letter of rec is someone that you actually have a close relationship with. Now, obviously, like I understand I went to a really big undergrad. Making those relationships, especially with those science professors, is difficult sometimes when you're in a lecture hall of like 500, 600 people. But what I recommend and what I did, and what I also really like seeing when I get applications, is people who have letters of recommendation from the classes that they actually really struggled in. I think that failing and struggling at certain things and in certain classes, and just showing that professor how hard you're willing to work to do well, can really create like an amazing letter of recommendation. Those are some of the best ones I've gotten. And it's also a great way to explain maybe a lower grade, because if that like professor has a really good view of you and knows how hard you worked, that's almost the best way to show, okay, yeah, maybe this grade wasn't great, but they are so driven. They came to all my office hours, they came to the TA sessions, et cetera, et cetera. I think that is like a really cool way to use your letter of evaluations. But I will say they are important, but at the same time, it's such a holistic application. So it can depend. Like sometimes letters of evaluation become more important when someone's kind of on a 50-50 split on other things, then you're like, okay, let's lean on the letters of evaluation. Whereas if someone's blown away the interviews, blown away everything else, then the letters of evaluation are just like more praises to them. So it's just like a surefire thing. So all in all, just make sure you have good letters and make sure it's people that really know you and will write you like a passionate letter.
Yeah, love that. I feel like that advice of having someone that'll really go to bat and fight for you to get into dental school is a really good piece of advice. So want to touch base. There's a lot of components of the application, and I'm sure that maybe you had some mistakes that you made in your own applications or reviewing other clients' applications. Interested in understanding what are some common mistakes that you see people committing while they're going through this application process, and what would you recommend avoiding? So maybe Heath, if you don't mind touching base on this.
Yeah, one thing that comes to mind with this is, and this kind of applies to the interview process, but even before that, is sometimes you get students who are so passionate about achieving this dream that in that passion they become overly competitive with other applicants, and that really comes across, whether that's in your application somewhere or just in the way that you're interacting with other people at interviews. And because dental schools really they're looking for people who have all of the stats, the GPA, the DAT score, but they're also looking for people who are going to be a part of their community and part of their family for the next 4 years. So I would just say, as you're following this dream and working really hard for it, don't get caught up in being competitive with other people. Just view other people as your future classmates and your future co-workers, because we all have the same dream, and you don't have to put other people down to be able to get there.
Awesome. Anything you would add, Shivani?
I think something I said earlier was just submitting as soon as you can. That's probably a biggest mistake that people make, and really important to what Heath was saying about making sure when you're there on interview day to present your best self, and also try to make your interview not necessarily about dentistry the entire time. As much as you want the admissions to get to know you, you should also try to make that conversation and get to know them, so they understand that you're someone that's personable, someone that can talk to patients in the future and create conversations and create relationships. Someone that will always stand out as an applicant is someone that comes to the interview and creates a relationship with the person that's interviewing, and kind of turn that and make it about them and ask them, like, how was their experience here? People love talking about themselves, and it's the same thing in an interview too. The more you they'll remember that, and they'll remember, oh, like, I remember this name because I told them this story. So I think that's also something that's important in interviews.
Awesome. Love that. Be human, be genuine, be someone that the admissions committee or other students or peers would want to be around. I think those are all really great thoughts. Okay, so to round us out, if you had one final tip you have for the 250 people on the call today, what would that tip be? So maybe we start with you, Ruby, and then we'll go to Heath and then Shivani.
I think that the most important thing I can say, and kind of what echoes how I've answered other questions, is to be genuine and be yourself when you're applying. You are doing this because it's your dream. You're doing this because it's a career you want to pursue. And most importantly, you're doing this to help people and patients in the future. If those are your goals and that's what you want to do, be yourself. Obviously, do what you got to do in terms of the testing and all that, but put your best foot forward and your most genuine foot forward. And just don't forget that. I can't emphasize enough what Heath was saying. This is a very small community. I know it seems really big, but it's not. The impressions you make on each other and others as you go through it will, make huge differences. I'm friends with people I met on the interview trail, and those people aren't just classmates or whatever, they become colleagues. So just remember that, put your best foot forward at all times, and just be genuine.
My final tip would be, as you're going through and like working really hard and going through the process, I think it's really helpful to have a dedicated mentor who you can go to, whether that's a family member, or whether it's a coach on Leland. It's really helpful to have someone who, as you're going through the process, you can ask them little questions about each step that you're on, whether it's studying for the DAT or little things on the application. Just having someone who can be there to walk you through it, because we've all had that. We've all had to have someone help walk us through the process.
Yeah, kind of echoing what Heath was saying. I think it's important to have someone that is a dedicated person you can always reach out to. Like I said, I was trying to reach out to different people from different schools to try to understand, but also I felt like I was like a burden and couldn't always ask the small questions or the questions that you think are stupid questions. You always want to have someone that you can just kind of go to with everything all the time, and know that they know your holistic application. It's always hard for someone to give you advice when they don't know everything that's going on in your application. And I think that's really good to have someone that will understand your full application and help you take the best parts out of that and put those to showcase. Because if you're just kind of talking to a friend or someone that's applied in the past, you're kind of telling them only like the things you already were going to put in the application anyways. Whereas if you have someone like a coach, then you kind of are forced to list out, hey, these are everything that I've done. Which of these do you think is important? And I think kind of having that sounding board is really important.
Awesome. All really good pieces of advice. Don't underestimate how unique and how amazing you truly are. And you just need to think through each components of the application. How do they all piece together to tell this compelling story or narrative that makes the AdCom understand how amazing you are, so that you can get to the next stages of the application process, such as interviews and ultimately acceptance. Awesome. Well, thank you so much to our panelists for providing your expertise on this call. Can we all give them like a round of applause, a thumbs up in the chat? We really appreciate all the great answers to these questions, and their expertise is not limited to a 1-hour panel. As mentioned, you can reach out to each of these coaches through their Leland profiles. You can talk with them, you can work with them one-on-one through each of the components of the application. They are here to support you, and we have dozens of other coaches that are here to support you as well. So thank you, panelists. We're really appreciative of your time and the tips and strategies that you shared with each of us. And with that, thank you all for joining this dental school event. Now it's time to go and prepare and create really standout applications. So as mentioned, sign up for Leland. We have lots of free resources and guides and a community of people to support you along the way. You can book time with a coach to help you with the components of your application. And putting all these things together will ultimately help you submit an application that you're proud of and help you put your best foot forward when applying to school. So with that, thank you. And let's go get you into dental school.